casualties, including 35 children. According to reports, Russian air defense systems have reportedly destroyed 100 Ukrainian drones overnight. No casualties or damage has been confirmed, and the incident, of course, takes place as military operations on the ground between Russia and Ukraine intensify. The Netherlands has held a snap election seen as a crucial test for Europe's far right, with Geert Wilder's anti-immigration Freedom Party running with 3 other parties, while over 50% of voters remain undecided. However, all mainstream parties have ruled out forming a coalition with Wilders amid growing polarization over immigration and housing. The United States will reduce its military presence in Europe by suspending the rotation of a combat brigade deployed across several NATO countries. According to Romania's defense ministry, the move comes as Washington reassesses its force posture on NATO's eastern flank. US President Donald Trump has met his South Korean counterpart Lee Jae-myung. Trump has stated that a new trade deal with South Korea will be finalized very soon. Meanwhile, a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping is slated to take place tomorrow. Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has warned that holding election without her party, the Awami League, being involved is sowing the seeds of division. She has denounced her alleged crimes against humanity trial as politically motivated, calling a guilty verdict preordained. Hurricane Melissa is moving from Jamaica to Cuba. Over 735,000 people have been evacuated as the Category 4 storm has approached southeastern Cuba, bringing life-threatening flooding and destructive winds. The Vietnamese government says that heavy rains have triggered deadly floods in central Vietnam, killing at least 9 and leaving 5 missing. Flood waters have submerged over 103,000 homes in Da Nang, Hoi An and Hue, reaching up to 2 meters in several areas. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. The Israeli military has stated that it has reinstated the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip after launching what it calls a series of targeted operations against Hamas positions over the past day. Israel has stated that operations were carried out alongside the Israeli Security Agency, targeting around 30 individuals identified as commanders within Hamas and other terrorist groups in Gaza. In a statement, the IDF has emphasized that following a series of strikes in which dozens of terror targets and terrorists were struck, the IDF has commenced renewing the enforcement of the ceasefire in response to violations by Hamas, a charge that Hamas has now denied. Israel, meanwhile, says that Hamas breached the US brokered truce, prompting a directive from political leaders to respond before enforcing the ceasefire once again. The Israeli military has added that it will uphold the agreement but will respond firmly to any further violations. Remember earlier, the Israeli military had launched 3 airstrikes in Gaza in the aftermath of the death of an IDF soldier. The deceased soldier fell in southern Gaza in combat and has been identified as 37-year-old Yonah Ephraim Feldbaum. Joining us on the broadcast is Sol Satka, security analyst and author from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We've seen a series of airstrikes take place in Gaza over the past day. Israeli military has come out and made it very clear that this is in response to the ceasefire violation that took place, in which one soldier lost his life earlier, and has also stated that there are at least 30 terrorists and Hamas commanders who've been neutralized. I want to understand from you, what are the concerns that Israel has at large? We've also seen a comment being made by J.D. Vance that the ceasefire is still holding, and Donald Trump also coming out and clearly backing Israeli action.
Absolutely. It's critical when you have a ceasefire like this, particularly facing a terrorist organization like Hamas, that any deceit on their part, any attempt to test the limits of the ceasefire and return to war is responded to with overwhelming force. The mistake that Israel made over the past 20 years with Gaza was that they turned the other cheek on too many occasions. That Hamas attacks were responded to by very minor retaliations from Israel. And the more you do that, the more they test the limits. And at that point, you end up in a state of war inevitably. So it's absolutely critical that Israel takes the opportunity of any breach of the ceasefire by Hamas to make a line in the sand, literally a line in the sand, a line in the rubble at this point, to be honest, to say no more. Otherwise, things will continue to deteriorate. At the same time, it's critical for Israel. There are a couple of thousand Hamas men remaining under arms on the other side of the yellow line. And in the long run, the more Israel can attrit them, that might be the only way to reduce their power and to help the remaining victims of Hamas, which are the people of Gaza, the innocent civilians who remain under their rule, to get out from under their rule. That might be a very long process, seeing as there's no particular prospect of anyone apart from Israel fighting Hamas to remove them from Gaza. And certainly no one is motivated to, and Israel, indeed, is no longer motivated to. So it could be that these regular surges in fighting as Hamas breach the ceasefire and Israel retaliates with massive force, if even in a limited fashion, will turn out to be the way in which Hamas is slowly attrited, and perhaps, who knows, in a few years, maybe there will be nothing left of them. And the Gazan people, too, will be free of their persecutions, just as the Israeli people have been made free of them.
Indeed, I request you to stay on with us. We're tracking some other very crucial developments. We're now learning that the spokesperson of the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Oren Marmorstein, will be sharing a brief on the recent events that have taken place in Gaza in just about 22 minutes. We will be cutting to that very, very shortly. But in the meantime, we're also learning that Gaza Civil Defense Agency has reported that at least 50 people have been killed in these airstrikes that have taken place. In fact, one of the deadliest strikes hit central Khan Yunis, destroying a home and sending injured and dead Palestinians to the city's Nasser hospital. Listen in to what a resident has had to say.
طلق دفاع مدني خان يونس عن العديد من الإشارات، أولها استهداف جيب من نوع توسان في شارع القسام. توجهت طواقمنا حيث كان العدد الإجمالي 5 شهداء، ومن ثم استهداف شقة سكنية لأهل القدرة، تم انتشال 3 شهداء، والآن تم استهداف أرض بها خيمتين. تم إجلاء العديد من الإصابات على مستشفى ناصر 5 إصابات.
Officials have also reported that 5 people were killed when a missile struck a civilian vehicle on Al-Qasim Street in Khan Yunis. Earlier, 2 civilians, including a child and an infant, were killed in a separate strike on the Al-Bana family home in Gaza City's Al-Sabra neighborhood. This renewed wave follows an assault that left an Israeli soldier dead, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordering new operations against Hamas in the aftermath of that as well. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Saul Satka. Taking a look at the bigger picture, we've seen these strikes in Gaza. We've seen, in fact, airstrikes also take place in the West Bank. What is your feeling as far as the fragile ceasefire is concerned? Will it hold any further? And what are Israel's concerns also with regards to the West Bank and attempts being made to once again sort of reinvigorate the terror networks over there?
So I have no expectation that the ceasefire will break down in total, only because the only people that can make it break down are Israel. The Hamas terrorists are no longer in a position to launch a war, and they're bottled in behind the IDF. So they can't start a war. They can breach the ceasefire, and the Israelis will then punish them for doing so. But there's no particular motive on the part of the Israelis to bring an end to the ceasefire and go back to a full-scale war against Hamas, because Israel has pretty much got everything that it wants from Hamas already. It doesn't bother the Israeli public very much if, on the other side of a wide buffer zone, there are still terrorists living, since they primarily only cause problems to the 2 million people who live under their rule now. So that I don't see that happening. Not this side of an Israeli election in any case, which will be approximately a year away. As regards the West Bank, while Israel has been fighting the war in Gaza over the past 2 years, and while it's been attriting its enemies all over the Middle East, essentially, there's almost nothing left of the axis of resistance that can harm Israel. They have also been conducting operations in some of the hubs of terror activity in the West Bank. And there, as the New York Times and others have noted, what they call the resistance has been severely degraded. And yet, they continue to try to rearm and commit terror attacks on Israeli civilians. And so the Israelis continue to wear them down. And the only question is Israel wearing them down faster than they are rearming? And I think the answer is yes. That doesn't mean there won't be any terror coming out of the West Bank. That seems like an inevitability for the foreseeable future for decades, as it has been for the past decades. However, the Israeli army does seem to have that very much under control in a way that it hasn't been under control for decades. And so I'm optimistic about the future of the ceasefire in the West Bank as well. I expect that to be a long-term calm, relative calm, say, going forward.
Indeed, and we've also recently seen a statement being put out by the IDF with regards to the presence of Turkish troops as part of the international coalition for ensuring that Gaza returns to normalcy. Donald Trump has pointed out the involvement of Arab states, particularly Egypt, Qatar, the UAE, Turkey as well, which did play a role in mediating the ceasefire. What are Israel's concerns with Turkey as far as its presence on the ground is concerned, and Erdogan's position, factoring Erdogan's position in particular?
Well, Erdogan in particular is no friend of Israel, at least openly. Although the chief of his intelligence staff and parts of the army are very friendly with Israelis behind the scenes. A lot of the stuff that you read from Arab leaders and also from Erdogan attacking Israel, a lot of it is not truly believed. They're saying this to placate their people. The reality is that they are in practice working with Israel on many levels, as everyone knows. So the question is, how much is Israel opposed to any kind of Turkish peacekeepers in Gaza? My assumption is that's real, because there is deep suspicion, at least among the Israeli public, of the motives of Erdogan and parts of Turkey, who have, after all, been harboring Hamas terrorists for a decade, who have actually been extremely aggressive publicly against Israel. And there's no prospect, in my opinion, of that actually happening. I don't even think anyone wants it. I don't think there are any Arab nations or Turkey who actually want to have their soldiers on the ground fighting Hamas beyond the yellow line in the Hamas-controlled part of Gaza. It seems to me totally unrealistic, but time will tell. Maybe I'll be wrong.
All right, with that, I would like to thank you, sir, for taking our time and sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus further east. We're now learning that U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is currently in Japan, where he's met his Japanese counterpart, Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi. His visit follows U.S. President Donald Trump's trip to the country and is part of a larger tour of Asia. Hegseth's meeting with Koizumi, along with President Trump's earlier visit, has reaffirmed the decades-old U.S.-Japan alliance. The talks emphasized a shared resolve to strengthen deterrence and enhance response capabilities. In fact, Pete Hegseth has spoken about the threats originating from China in particular and criticized what he called the aggressive military buildup of Chinese forces. He's reiterated the United States' support for Japan in the region. Japanese Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi also expressed concern over China's increasing defense budget and highlighted Japan's effort to strengthen its missile systems. These statements have come as U.S. President Donald Trump is set to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping tomorrow. Listen in to what both leaders have had to say.
As the minister and I discussed today, the security situation around Japan and in the region remains, as he said, and we agree, severe. The threats we face are real and they are urgent. China's unprecedented military buildup and its aggressive military actions speak for themselves. Make no mistake about it, our alliance is critical to deterring Chinese military aggression, to responding to regional contingencies and keeping our countries safe. Shoulder to shoulder with Japan, we look forward to continuing to strengthen our alliance. We will act practically, strongly, and with common sense.
また我が国周辺においてミサイル戦力が著しく増強されている状況を踏まえ、ミサイル防衛能力を不断に強化していくことも重要だと考えています。中国は国防費を継続的に高い水準で増加させ、十分な透明性を欠いたまま軍事力を広範かつ急速に増強させています。
With us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakar Ji, Senior Geopolitical and Strategic Defense Expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Trump, of course, concluded his power-packed trip to Tokyo yesterday itself. He was on board USS George Washington, addressing US troops in Japan, where he pointed out that the United States will be sending missiles to Japan later this week itself. Now, we do know Japan has been modifying its destroyers, its fleet, in order to accommodate these missiles. In fact, the deadline that was set was late this year, early next year, but that has been now expedited. That's not all. Donald Trump also spoke at the APEC business leaders conference earlier, once again, apart from his America First pitch, reaffirming the alliances that US shares with Japan and South Korea in the Indo-Pacific. We do know that the current administration, US administration under Donald Trump, has largely set its sights on the Middle East, the war in Europe as well. And for a while now, the Quad in particular has taken a slight back foot. Do you think all of this is a hint towards, once again, the Trump administration renewing its focus on the Indo-Pacific and countering China on this front?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for getting me for your show. Short answer to your question is yes. They have re-gravitated back to the National Security Strategy document and the doctrine, which has been formulated bipartisan. As a nation, they have taken a pledge and a commitment to address China as number one enemy. This is there in writing in black and white, not 1 year, for several, maybe more than a decade, it has been going on. And Donald Trump, during his 2.0 tenure, for past nearly 8-9 months or so, he has shown very clear indications of abandoning the very idea of Indo-Pacific, the concept he himself had actually reinitiated, re-energized in the year 2017 in his earlier tenure. And it was not understood as to why he was playing truant and relegating the concept of Indo-Pacific so as to contain, counter, and contest China in all paradigms, whether it is economic or military or engineering or intelligence or diplomacy, in all paradigms. So therefore, I would say it is a kind of a reset by the Trump administration, getting back to maybe they had got derailed, they had, or they might have been distracted by the events taking place. So it's good, it's better late than never. They are back to the beaten path of well-deliberated, well-thought and very focused concept. And it's a very happy turnaround, I would say. Back to you, Pia.
Indeed, sir. Requesting you to please stay on with us. In fact, we're getting some breaking developments. Donald Trump has just stated that Washington has reached a trade deal with South Korea. We're getting, in fact, a live feed from Reuters. Let's, in fact, cut across and listen into what he said.
United States, from the standpoint of stocks, you put a lot of money in our stocks, so you're doing very well. I'd like to congratulate you. In some cases, you've doubled your money in about a year. And I'm very impressed with you. Your voters are very impressed with you. But we've done amazingly well. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. And we're over 17 trillion, probably up to $18 trillion of investment. In the last 4 years of the last administration, there were less than $1 trillion. And we're over 17 trillion. We're close to 18. I think we're going to be 21 or 22 trillion by the time I finished my first year, and there's never been anything like that for any country, not even close. And part of that is the national security, given to us by the tariffs, properly used tariffs, very properly used. And other countries, as you know, have used them against us, but we never chose to use them very much. And we should have, and it's made a big difference. Our country is thriving. I think we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And a year ago, we were a very troubled nation, but we're not anymore. So I just think it's an honor to be with you. You've all done a fantastic job. You're fantastic leaders. We had a great meeting a week ago. You came all the way, and now you came here, but this isn't quite as far. This time I traveled far. But you've done a fantastic job, and we're working together on rare earths, but we're working on a lot of things together, and it's all working out very well. But I just want to thank you for your hospitality, Mr. President. It's been great, and it's an honor, and we'll be back, and we'll see you again. And thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Still with us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakarji. We've just heard what Donald Trump has had to say at the APEC dinner. Also present with him on the table itself, Lee Jae-myung, Mark Carney of Canada, and Anthony Albanese of Australia. Trump has confirmed a trade agreement with South Korea. He stated that the United States is thriving right now. He's reaffirmed this partnership with allies. And I'd also like to, point out the fact that in the morning, during his speech at the business leaders meeting, he's pointed out about semiconductors, electricity, shipbuilding in particular, artificial intelligence, steel. Now, we do know that tensions between Washington, D.C. and Beijing are simmering. And Trump has invoked tariffs. He's threatened to invoke tariffs on the 1st of November. Beijing slammed back with port fees. There has been a restriction on rare earths, which are really crucial for the manufacturing of defense equipment. In fact, Beijing also put some restrictions and sanctions on South Korean shipbuilding firms, an industry that Donald Trump is looking at revitalizing in the United States of America. In context of all of this, where do you see the Trump-Xi talks heading in what direction do you see them heading in tomorrow?
Yeah, very intelligent question you have asked. I think you have touched the raw nerve of US in doing so. In my opinion, first and foremost thing which Donald Trump will try to address is the soybean and the corn, which is actually dumped and getting junked in the central portion of North America, that is the USA. Farmers are up in arms. They have become rather restless as to the market which is to be enjoyed by an established supply chain of China has got diverted to Brazil. And there are no buyers for the soybean. In 2018, it was around $20 billion. Now I'm given to understand it's exceeded $25 billion. So who's going to buy such a huge quantum? And the farmers are restless. So therefore, he is going to secure a commitment from China that this is going to be bought, that is soybean and oil. So second thing is China in by and by has put an embargo on certain rare earth elements like antimony, neodymium. Neodymium is such a mineral without which your F-35 cannot fly.
Yes.
Your Tesla cannot move.
Yes.
Your data centers will go dark. Likewise. So there are gallium, there are germanium, all these kinds of rare earth element and the critical minerals. He's going to take a very, very, I would say, assured commitment from China for a reasonably acceptable time limit that there should be no embargo in the supply chain from China, and assured supply must continue, without which the defense industry and the civilian industry in USA will come to a grinding halt. And third and most important thing is the critical issue about which China feels very vulnerable and sensitive of, that is Taiwan, reunification of Taiwan, tacitly or without tacitly, in some way or the other. China will try to negotiate with USA and take a kind of a assured commitment from USA that they will be reunifying Taiwan. There should be no objection or no protest or no kind of a military response from USA, whether it is boots on ground or any kind of military assistance which will make the resistance from Taiwan a formidable one for smooth integration and reunification with China. These are the couple of issues which are coming to my mind. Back to you, please.
Indeed, you've also spoken of the tech aspect of this sort of tussle that we're seeing between the United States and China. Interestingly, Amazon today had pledged $5 billion in data center investment in South Korea. Apart from this, what's also interesting is that we've seen South Korea's president, Lee Jae-myung, warning against protectionism and nationalism across the world. We know these two are characteristics of the Trump administration and, key points on which Trump did fight his campaign initially. Looking at the geographic realities of both South Korea and Japan, where Trump has concluded his visit recently, they cannot ignore geography. China is their neighbor. But on the other hand, they're also close allies of the United States of America. In your assessment, they are then caught in between. So how do you think they will then come to balance this if things, suppose, hypothetically, do not work out?
Good question again. In my view, I have following thoughts come to my mind. First and foremost thing is that, there is an old saying which is a traditional cliche in America today. It is called a taco. That is, Trump will, he will withdraw in his earlier statements and commitment. So there is every possibility of Trump doing flip-flop and going back in his earlier stance, and maybe possibly in times ahead the tariffs are going to be further lowered to ease out and ensure smooth movement of the trade and the transactions of the commercial product. That is one issue. Second issue is that there is a militarization across the board going on all over the world. Trump has already clearly indicated and ensured Japan has raised its the percentage of GDP towards the defense budget on the increase. So it's South Korea. So with the increase in the defense budget, both the countries as also Southeast Asian nations around South China Sea, they will be preparing for the worst eventuality. That is a conflict kind of a situation building up from China's side in order to deny freedom of movement in the Indo-Pacific. Third thing which is coming to my mind, PI, is that you made a very relevant point. How are they going to balance out in 21st century, or they will continue to remain in the Cold War era? Cold War era is over. We are onto Cold War 2.0. Cold War 2.0 is that USA has realized that they have stressed out too much as far as the military bases are concerned. As far as the security responsibilities are concerned, they would like to make sure that countries like Japan, South Korea, and Southeast Asia like Philippines and all, agreement is fine and mutual contract or the pacts are fine. But when it comes to the finances, they will make sure that earlier finances which used to be borne, the expenditure borne by USA, are taken on by the respective countries, thereby reducing the burden on USA economy, because the debt in USA economy as of today is 37 trillion, and this is actually bounced. It has jumped from 5 trillion in the year 2005 to 37 trillion in 2025, just about 20 years time. That's what he was trying to indicate, that the debt is mounting by the day. He would do anything and everything to reduce the debt of the USA economy from 37 trillion US dollar to maybe 31 trillion by the time he finishes his tenure. Back to you, Pia.
Indeed, interestingly, as you pointed out, I'd like to address one last thing before I move on. We're seeing this tussle not only just over the rare earths, as I also pointed out, the tech tussle, the artificial intelligence race that is going on, the chips that are being used, NVIDIA, some of the NVIDIA chips were in fact restricted by United States of America to China. And of course, NVIDIA made history yesterday by becoming the first company ever to reach a market valuation of 5 trillion. Jensen Huang is in South Korea for this summit as well, something that Trump has pointed out in his speech earlier today. So what happens in the meeting tomorrow remains to be seen, but there are a lot of expectations and the world's eyes are trained on the crucial Trump-Xi meeting. I request you, Major General Sudhakarji, to please stay on with us as we're tracking some other very crucial information, this time from South Asia. All right, there seems to be some trouble with our PCR crew in moving the screen, but I'll address it nonetheless. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif has threatened to obliterate the ruling Taliban in neighbouring Afghanistan in a dramatic escalation of rhetoric after the collapse of talks towards a lasting peace between the South Asian nations. Pakistan's Information Minister Atalullah Tarar has now stated that truce negotiations have concluded in Istanbul without a workable solution in a blow to peace in the region after this month's deadly clashes. Meanwhile, Khwaja Asif has stated that Pakistan would not need to deploy even a fraction of its full arsenal to completely obliterate the Taliban regime and drive them back into hiding, as he put it, in caves. Still with us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakarji. We've been discussing this yesterday as well. I pointed out to the report that had come out with regards to this mysterious phone call that was received by the Pakistani delegation in Istanbul from Islamabad itself, which brings me back to my question. Considering this rhetoric that we're seeing, this sort of posturing that we're seeing from Pakistan, this tough talk being made by the Defence Minister Khwaja Asif threatening to obliterate Taliban, do you think they'll really follow through? I asked you this yesterday as well. But in a very short manner, because Pakistan is facing a multi-pronged war. They have skirmishes taking place with Iran. They have their terror proxies operating in India. They were considerably weakened during Operation Sindoor. There are tumultuous activities taking place in Balochistan, TTP attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well.
Yeah, nothing stops Pakistan from opening another front. It has become a country, I often call it as a frontless. It doesn't have any front today, though all the fronts are open. So, but despite that, they will open up a new front and they will add agony to the anguish which the country is going through. Nothing will stop it from opening that front. That is my take. But however, having opened the front, how long will it last? These are the questions which come to me as a military man. Is it going to be a short skirmish? Is it going to be a mere air violation like the way they have done, I think on 9th of October or some date and subsequently another day, now close to Kabul? Or is it going to be only artillery bombardment? That is what India would look for. It's an ideal opportunity for India to take back Pakistan, occupy Jammu Kashmir when the Western Front is active. We are waiting for those kind of eventualities, to open up. But will Pakistan do it? That is what the question is. The options are, one, yes, they can, but will they be able to sustain?
Yes.
Number two, they may do it partially, and half of it they would like to, take a back foot. Number three, they may not do anything. This may be kind of a rhetoric they are actually undertaking. Why? Why am I saying this? As on today, Pakistan is in serious debt. They require close to or more than 23 billion US dollar.
Yes.
Just simply for debt servicing. Total debt as on today is more than 250 billion dollars I'm talking of. External being 87 billion and internal is more than 180 billion dollars. So therefore, debt servicing is the biggest quandary and biggest threat in the mind of the people as far as economy is concerned. Second thing, there is a constitutional crisis. There is also crisis in the military. Military is actually disorganized. There is a disobedience of order. People are not willingly coming to participate in any conflict against any terrorist organization. There are far too many Jawans and officers being killed with the encounter against the Balochi Liberation Army, as also the Tehrik-Taliban and Afghanistan-Taliban. And most important thing is, when the front is being opened up, well, let them open up. This is exactly what India should be looking for. We want a front to be opened up with the Taliban, Afghanistan, so that it remains committed. This is going to be a golden window of opportunity for India to invest intelligently in a calibrated manner and extend orchestration of Operation Sindoor 2 to finish up Pakistan completely from the face of the planet. Back to you, Priya.
All right, sir, with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time and sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, this is all we have for this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned for more.